enough, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. For thus saith Yahweh of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye.
Shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Brother Jonas, and the title of this video is, Were the Laws Given Before the Flood? You and I have heard so many times, brothers, others say that the laws were given before the flood, and that's not true. And I'm going to prove it. I will show you how they made an honest mistake and why they thought the laws were given. In doing this, we will be able to hold on to the truth that the laws were given to Israel only, and not everybody in the world. Because if the laws were given before the flood, that means that everybody in the world had the laws. If I am wrong, then the laws are given to everyone, and Scripture is a lie. This is kind of like the blessings of Esau and Jacob. Jacob was given ownership of the world, and Esau took the world for a short period. One was given, and the other one was just there to be had. Read the blessings and do a little thinking, or just look at my video, The Man of Sin and Son of Perdition Revealed, and you should understand. Let's get into it. We'll start with the given law first to set the foundation of facts. The laws were only given to Israel and not to anyone before the flood or after the flood, except to the nation of Israel. Romans 3, verse 1. What advantage then hath the Jew? Or what profit is there of circumcision? Much every way, chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of the Most High. We see to the Israelites were committed or given the oracles, which are laws, statutes, and judgments of the Most High. Psalms 78, verse 5. For he established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children. For the Most High established a testimony in Jacob, or gave the word to Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, commanded them to be obeyed, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, meaning to be passed down from generation to generation. 2 Ezra 3, verse 19. And thy glory went through 4 gates of fire, and of earthquake, and of wind, and of cold, that thou mightest give the law unto the seed of Jacob, and diligence unto the generation of Israel. The Most High's glory went through 4 gates of fire, and of earthquake, and of wind, and of cold, so that he might give the law to the seed of Jacob, which is Israel, and diligence or spiritual focus to the generations of Israel. 2 Ezra 9, verse 31. For behold, I sow my law in you, and it shall bring fruit in you, and ye shall be honored in it forever. The Most High said he sowed his law in Israel, and it will bring fruit in Israel, and Israel will be honored in it forever. Psalms 147, verse 19. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes, and his judgments unto Israel. He had not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. The Most High said he showed his word to Jacob, his statutes and his judgments to Israel. He have not done this with any other nation. And as far as for his judgments, other nations have not known them. Praise Yahweh. 2 Ezra 5, verse 27. And among all the multitudes of people, thou hast gotten thee one people, and unto this people whom thou lovest, thou gavest a law that is approved of all. Here Ezra is speaking to the Most High, and he said, among all the multitudes of people in the world, you, Most High, have gotten himself one people, and to this people, Israel, that you love. You gave a law that is approved of all. In all of these scriptures, you can see that the Most High gave Israel the law, without a doubt. So, if the Most High gave the law to Israel only during the time of Moses, then how did the law exist before Israel and before the flood? The answer is simple. Just remember, the law was not given prior to Israel. Just remember, the law was not given prior to Israel. Let's go see what went down, and we'll get the foundation for taking the law. Genesis 2, verse 15. And Yahweh, the Most High, took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And Yahweh, the Most High, commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest eat freely, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. So the Most High created man, or Adam, and he told him he could eat from all the trees in the garden except from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That was the only tree he couldn't eat from. This is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So if you eat from this tree, you're going to obtain knowledge of good and evil. This is very important. Listen to the description of this tree. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. To know what good is and to know what evil is. When you know what good is and what evil is, then you can discern the difference and you can make choices of which one you want to partake of, good or evil. You getting this? This is the answer of how Noah and all of the descendants of Seth down to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew about some of the laws. They knew of the knowledge of good and evil and chose to do good. We also know that Adam and many of the forefathers through the line of Seth down to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob also had conversations with God. And the Most High just didn't talk about how nice of a day it was. He talked about his laws, his statutes, and judgments on how to live. And these people listened, and they took the good of it and used it. We also knew of good and evil when we were old enough to understand, say age 12 and up. And for most of us, it was before we knew we were Israelites. The knowledge of good and evil was in us because Adam and Eve had eaten from that tree. This knowledge of good and evil was not given to them. It was taken by them. Just like Esau's blessings, where he would take what he has by the sword. You see, there's a difference between someone giving you something and you taking something. We take things every day as we hear people speak about one subject or another subject. We take that. It's not given to us. So the foundation for taking the law is rooted in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. the ability to discern whether or not something is beneficial according to your spiritual morals. Now, let's go to Abraham, and he'll help drill down a little further. Genesis 26, verse 5. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Some of you are saying, see, he gave his commandments, statutes, and laws to Abraham. No, he didn't. Let me explain, and you can then use common sense to understand the difference between giving and taking. The Most High had many conversations with Abraham. Most are not written in the Bible. They were friends. And the Most High didn't just shoot the breeze with Abraham when he talked with him. He talked about righteous living, which would be his laws. He talked about how people should conduct themselves in all manner of life, which would be his laws and statutes. He talked about what he would do to the wicked people and righteous people, which are his judgments. And Abraham did whatever the Most High told him to do, which is obedience. This is conversation that Abraham had and heard while talking to the Most High. And Abraham believed the Most High in all things of their conversations. It was like a little child very interested in everything his father had to say. He listened and he believed and applied. This is faith. And Abraham used the knowledge of good and evil and chose the good and was seen as a righteous and upright man in the eyes of the Most High and called him a friend of God. James 2, verse 23. And the scripture was fulfilled, which saith, Abraham believed the Most High, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. Abraham was told things by the Most High. He believed the Most High and took his counsel, and he was called the friend of the Most High. Friends have conversations, just like you may tell a heathen about the laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Most High. But you are not giving the laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Most High to them. You see the difference? The heathen you told may use the knowledge of good and evil to decide whether or not to live righteously or wickedly by what you told him. But the law was not given to them. You did not give them the law. You told them about the law. They took it by listening and believing and applying it in their daily life. That's what went down. Let's go back to Genesis for a moment to discuss the offering that Cain and Abel made to the Most High. Because some people will say, see, hey man, they were sacrificing back then. Let's see what it says. Because we sometimes tend to add more to something than what's really there. Genesis 4, verse 2. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. We see the skills or craft or jobs that Cain and Abel had. They did these things for a living, and they were both fruitful in their work. So, in the passing of time, they wanted to show their appreciation to God for what they have. They knew the name of Yahweh. They knew God's name was Yahweh. They knew that he had created all things, including their parents. Verse 3. And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. You see, this offering was made without commandment. This was something they decided to do to show their appreciation to the Creator. Cain wanted to do something good, but it wasn't good enough. Verse 4. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And Yahweh had respect unto Abel and to his offering. Now Abel gave an offering of the firstlings of his flock, and the best he had. What you have to understand is that the Most High knew what each of those men were thinking before they even did it. Cain was being lazy and cheap, while Abel was being thoughtful by picking the best he had in the way of a living offering. It took time to examine each firstling sheep and get the best. He was meticulous in looking through each of his firstling sheep and getting the best he had. The Most High knew where their heart was. This offering was not commanded. If it were, then where was Adam's offering for himself and Eve? Now you see, there's no offering by them. This was something the two brothers decided to do. And these offerings would later be incorporated into what we call the laws. Verse 5, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. The Most High didn't respect Cain's offering because he didn't give the best he could have given. If he didn't have any animals, he could have took a whole bunch of vegetables and fruit and got some of the best animals he could from his brother and offered it, but he didn't. That's being lazy and not being thoughtful. This and other offerings made then were not commanded. They simply used the knowledge of good and evil and tried to do good to the Creator. What do you give a Creator who owns everything? You give him the best you have to show your respect. Let's look at tithing with Abraham, because see, this was before the laws was given to Israel, and people will say, see, they were tithing. Let's take a look. Genesis 14, verse 18. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Elohim. So Christ came to Abraham in what's called a theophany, a visible manifestation of God or Christ. Verse 19. And he blessed him and said, blessed be Abram of the Most High Elohim, possessor of heaven and earth. So Christ ate and drank with Abraham. Verse 20. And blessed be the Most High Elohim, which had delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. Abraham gave Melchizedek, king of Salem, tithe of all. See that? Listen to what it says now. He gave him tithe of all. When we tithe according to the law that was given to Israel, do we give tithe of all? No, we don't. We give tithe 10% of the things that are grown and things that are raised. If you notice, this is not the tithe that's in the law that was given to Israel. Read in Leviticus and Deuteronomy about the tithe. This is a prelude, a beginning, or an example of something to happen in the future to what will become a commanded tradition or law later handed down to Israel. We got Abraham giving a tithe. Let's add Jacob to the mix so we can kind of start to put things a little bit more together. Genesis 28, verse 20. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if the Most High will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall Yahweh be my Elohim. And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be the Most High's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. I will surely give the 10th, key words, the 10th unto thee. So Jacob is making a vow to the Most High, and this vow is not a light thing. You don't make a vow to the Most High unless you plan on keeping it. He'll make you feel it. Jacob said, if the Most High will be with me and will keep him in this way that he go, and will give him bread to eat and clothes to put on, and allow him to come to his father's house in peace, then of all that the Most High will give him, he will surely give the 10th to the Most High. Here you are seeing that Jacob, before the law is given to his descendants, he initiate the 10th of all he has. Now we have an amount of tithe. Remember, no amount was mentioned with Abraham. When Abraham gave to Melchizedek, it didn't say anything about a 10th. It said he gave tithe of all. Here we also see that Jacob said a 10th of all he had. Well, the Most High, according to the law that was given to Israel only, does not want a 10th of all that we had or all that he gave us. He only wanted a 10th of our increase of the land, meaning food, and a 10th of our livestock, best of the newborn, meaning food. So you see, tithing before the law was given to Israel was done by Abraham and Jacob out of the knowledge of good and evil. They simply did the good thing or the right thing. So, were the laws given before the flood? No, I showed you. They were not. If the laws were given before the flood, then that would make the Most High a liar. Psalms 147, verse 19. He showeth his words unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He had not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. If the laws were given before the flood, then they would be for everybody and not just for Israel. If the laws were given before the flood, then the Bible would be for everybody and not just for Israel. And a whole lot of scriptures would be wrong. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is what was taken by Adam and Eve. They took it. They disobeyed the Most High and took it. Taken by Adam and Eve and handed down to all the people throughout the world and throughout time. But the laws of the Bible and the Bible itself was given to Israel. Like the best blessing was given to Israel, or the best blessing was given to Jacob by Isaac. Hopefully you can see the difference and understand the importance of your argument. Peace, Israel. TikTok.
Behold, I come quickly.